Hey, welcome to Herp Corner, where we'll be discussing the black-eyed gecko, also known as the Whittaker's sticky-toed gecko. Yes, this is the second gecko episode in a row. No, I'm not sorry. The black-eyed gecko is an alpine species, which means they're native to mountainous areas. They can be found in 3 locales within South New Zealand. Black-eyed geckos were found in the seaward kahutarae range. Black-eyed geckos were discovered in 1970 and named in 1985 by Anthony Hume Whittaker. This species is remarkably recent in discovery, having only been noticed 42 years ago. Very few specimens have been documented, a little less than 50. The last documented was in 1995. The IUCN judges this species to be vulnerable in population numbers due to them being preyed on by the rapidly increasing populations of feral goats native to their areas. Black-eyed geckos are found in the highest altitude of New Zealand out of any lizard species there. Here's a fun fact. Our more perceptive viewers might have noticed in the title that I wrote down 2 genera, the plural of genus, for this species, Hoplodactylus and Mokopirirakau. This is because the species is listed with 2 generic names, but 1 specific epithet. A specific epithet is the second part of the scientific name. They were first named by Anthony H. Whittaker in 1985 and again by Sturart V. Nielson in 2011. Shout out to Mr. Nielson, by the way, who has a Twitter account. Just to really highlight how recent this animal was discovered, this is the first time that someone who named the animal we're covering in Herp Corner has social media. Good for him. Getting back on track, replicating their environment in captivity would be rather hard considering the high altitude at which they're found. Additionally, given the low size of actual documented specimens of this animal, it doesn't seem like they'd be available in captivity anytime soon. Regardless, for fun, or in case they somehow become huge within the reptile breeding community, let's discuss the general care of the black-eyed gecko. They probably feed similarly in captivity to a crested gecko, considering in the wild they feast on insects, nectar, and berries. It's safe to say crested gecko repashy with some invertebrates thrown in for variety would be great. Young hornworms, waxworms, mealworms, crickets, and even nightcrawlers would probably be fine for them. They can grow up to 3 inches, so a large enclosure would probably be overkill. A long 20-gallon tank would be suitable. Due to their size, anything could really work as a hide, specifically fake leaves and rocks. Just make sure when picking out decorations that they're sturdy, or at least that they wouldn't hurt the animal if they fell. The species, although nocturnal, is prone to basking. Basking spot temperature of around 80 degrees Fahrenheit is optimal, though it's important to leave the opposite side a cool 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It'd be good to note that these geckos can still thrive down to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Their native environment is very dry, though a water bowl should always be provided. Misting is unnecessary. Exoterra plantation soil would work fine as a substrate, but for lower maintenance, the Exoterra sand mat, not to be confused with sand, do not put this animal on sand, or the Zilla green mat would work. Since they're small, it's important to keep an eye on them if taking them outside their enclosures. Smaller geckos are vulnerable to people stepping on them or getting lost. In general, handling is not recommended. When it comes to breeding, there are very few, if not no, instances of success. Though captive bred black-eyed geckos would be incredibly useful due to the amount of information of this animal, or rather, lack thereof, most geckos are very easy to breed, only really needing a male and a female to produce eggs. Most geckos are very easy to breed, only really needing a male and a female to produce eggs. From what we know, these geckos are no different. Black-eyed geckos are studied to mate between spring and summer, producing, like most geckos, a clutch of, commonly, 2 eggs. The hardest part, if anyone ever attempted to breed this species, would most definitely be simply finding a breeding pair. Captive bred specimens would be incredible for the research of the species and help us better understand their habits, care, and intelligence. This should not be confused for me advocating taking in wild-caught black-eyed geckos for the sole purpose of having them as a pet. Only responsible breeders or researchers who know what they're getting into have a pass in my book, mostly because of the vulnerable population numbers of this animal. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this installment of Herp Corner, and I hope upcoming years we learn more about the black-eyed gecko. There is still so much in the world of herpetology that is yet to be discovered, and I hope that with this series I'm able to shed light on that fact.